Good morning, fourth graders. We're on lesson 6 today in unit 5. I'm on page 195 of my math book. And today we're shifting gears a little bit. We're going to start talking about how to find the perimeter and area of quadrilaterals. So it's still measurement. We're measuring these things, but we are moving on from converting different types of measurement and looking at how to find the area and perimeter. This is review from third grade, so right now in your head, try to remember what the difference is between perimeter and area. Okay, if you think you have an idea, that's great. Kind of keep that in your head as a prediction. So today we're starting with perimeter. It reminds us that the prefix peri that you see in perimeter means around, which is actually a really good thing to remember because as we're finding the perimeter of a quadrilateral or any shape, we're finding the distance around the outside of it. The suffix meter means to measure, and we also, of course, that reminds us of the metric system, but for this, what we're learning is for any system. Perimeter is the measurement of the distance around the outside of a figure. Okay, so here they've given us 3 quadrilaterals, and you can see that they've got little, we've called these tick marks before, haven't we? Little lines here. And the space between those lines, we can see in our key here, is 1 centimeter. So then we have some letters that we use when we're measuring perimeter and area. Any time that we're looking at the length, we're going to use a lowercase l, width, lowercase w, and perimeter, capital P. Okay, so it says the measurement unit for these rectangles is 1 centimeter. How can you find the total number of centimeters around the outside of each rectangle? So you can kind of think about how would you find all of the centimeters? You're probably thinking about counting them. A common mistake that fourth graders make is that they just count these tick marks. They just count the lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But just like pretty much everything we've done so far this year, we're always looking at the space in between, or the hop. Remember, we've talked about this in fractions, also earlier in this unit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice that that is 6 centimeters across, even though there were only 5 of those marks. Really try to keep that in your head as we move forward, because then you'll be able to avoid the common mistake that a lot of people make. So on this side, 2. So we have a shape that's 6 across and 2 down, or a length of 6 and a width of 2. So do you think if I add 6 plus 2, would that be the perimeter of this shape? I'm missing something, aren't I? Yeah, I have to do this side, which of course is also going to be 2 because they're parallel. The sides are parallel to each other, and down here this is also going to be 6. So 6 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2 is one way that you could do that. Now, I bet some of you are already predicting in your head or remembering from third grade that there are some shortcuts involved here. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. One of the shortcuts is that since you're already doing 6 plus 6, could you just do 6 times 2 there and then 2 times 2? Yes, you could. One thing that sometimes makes this confusing is that people start to confuse perimeter with area once they start to use multiplication to take as a shortcut. You're welcome to, but if you want the really easy way to remember the difference between perimeter and area, perimeter is adding up all the sides. Area will be multiplying one side times another. So if you want to think about it that way, I think it's the easiest way to remember. So here are some questions just asking what the perimeter of those shapes are. You'll be able to answer more of those types of questions on your online assignment. And then just an explanation down here at the bottom of the key, noting that L stands for length, W for width, and a capital P for perimeter. Okay, now we're on page 196, and we're just moving to area. So right away, you probably notice a difference in these rectangles. they still are X, Y, and Z, and they're probably still the same length and width, but instead of just drawing the lines on the outside like last page, now we notice that there's squares drawn inside. That's because the area of a shape is the total number of square units that cover the figure. So there is a difference here. Remember, perimeter was just the distance around the outside. Area is all the stuff inside. So another way that I like to remember the difference between these two is perimeter is outside, area is inside. Sometimes that helps us remember the difference. Okay, so we see our key looks a little bit different, but we're still looking at centimeters. It's just that now we see a square. That's because 1 square centimeter means that you get a full 2-dimensional shape with 1 centimeter on each side. And then we've got, again, length, width, and notice that area is a capital A, just like perimeter was a capital P. How can you find the total number of square centimeters inside each rectangle? Well, of course, we could count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Or we could, again, take that width and length and and find those first. Jumping ahead of myself there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, remember, we're always looking at the space in between the measures, because if we don't, we'll get the wrong count. You'll notice this is the same shape as we had on the last page. Okay, but since we want the inside, if I just added up the sides and the length here, I wouldn't necessarily get the right answer. I would not get area. So instead, for area, we take the length times the width. And we only do that once. So it's just 6 times 2. And you can think of that as an array. If we had something like this, you've seen this many times before with your multiplication lessons where, oh, if you want to find out how many you have all together, you take how many rows there are times how many are in each row. So kind of that array style. 6 times 12, of course, equals, or 6 times 2, sorry, equals 12. And then instead of just writing centimeters, we're going to do centimeters squared. You can either write the little 2 like that, or you could write your answer 12 square centimeters. Notice that I abbreviated square there. The reason we have to write it like this is because we're talking about a full square here. We're not talking about just one little line. We're talking about the whole thing. Okay, and then again, they have more questions for the other shapes that you could practice finding the area by multiplying the length times the width. And then if we wanted to say a formula for how to find the area, we could say area equals the length times the width. I think I forgot to do this one on the perimeter one, so I'm just going to do it right here. Remember, capital P stands for perimeter. A formula is just a number sentence without the numbers. It's just showing how you would find something if you had some of this information. It looks a lot like algebra, right? It really is algebra because you have these variables that you need to fill in. So perimeter equals, and remember that that's adding up all the sides, so the length plus the length plus the width plus the width. And some of you might like to get fancy on that, remember, and do length times 2 plus width times 2. If this looks a little weird or confusing to you, stick with this. Stick with just knowing perimeter's adding, area's multiplying. It's a nice simple way of remembering. Okay, so on the next page, they are showing us pretty much exactly what we just did. You can see there's length plus width plus length plus width for perimeter. It's just a little different order than what I wrote it before. And we have a rectangle up here again, and they're showing us the width and the length. And then here we have the area. Notice that they have the squares in because area is squares, length times width. So this is a really good thing. You can even pause the video to read this over, or you can read it from your math book. So let's look at some problems that you'll probably see in your lesson today. Find the perimeter of rectangle A, find the area of rectangle B. Obviously, it's really the same rectangle. They've just drawn it differently. So again, don't just count these lines on the side. If you do, you're going to get the wrong width, and length. You have to start on the corner and count the space in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 hops there. 1, 2, 3, 3. Okay, so remember area is length times width. So I'm going to do 3 times 6 equals 18. And then because I know that area has to be squared, I'm talking about squares when I talk about the area, then I know that I need to write that in a certain way. Square inches. Okay, and then remember, oops, I accidentally did area. Sorry, guys. That was area. So that one, I could have used this, but really you can use either one. Now let's find the perimeter. So we know that we have to take that 6 plus 3 plus another 6 plus another 3, because perimeter is the distance around the outside of a shape. So 3 plus 3 plus 6 plus 6. And then that will equal 18. Look at that. Sometimes they equal the same thing. Not very often, but every once in a while. It's kind of a fun coincidence, a fun math coincidence. Noticing that I didn't have to say square inches, because when I'm doing the perimeter, it's literally just a line measurement. I'm not measuring squares, I'm just measuring a line around the outside of a shape. There are other practice problems here. You'll notice that immediately, because we're in 4th grade, we start seeing shapes that don't have those squares filled in anymore, because we should be able to find this without having to count squares. So again, area here would equal 2 times 9. Perimeter here would equal 9 plus 2 plus 9 plus 2. Go ahead and practice writing a few of these. I think it'll be really a good help as you go into your lesson today. And then they just have some word problems here that go backwards. So they might give you the whole perimeter and then you have to find what is missing. Or they might give you the whole area and then you have to find what is missing. We'll just do one real quick. I know we're getting a little past time here. Number 16, the perimeter of the rectangle is 32 inches. One side of the rectangle has a length of 11. What is the unknown side? Okay, so here's how you'd figure this out. You know that the whole distance adds up to 32. So you could do 32 minus 11, first of all. And then you know, oh, actually, no, wait. Let's double that 11, because we know if this is 11 on the top, that bottom one has to be 11 too, right? Because they're equal. What's 11 plus 11? 22. So 32 minus 22 equals 10. Now I know what I have left to work with. And I've seen a lot of 4th graders write the answer 10 to this, but would 10 be right? Would 10 be this side? It would not, because 10 would be both of these sides. So what do I have to do to that 10? I have to divide it by 2, divide it in half, and then I come up with my answer of 5. So that's kind of how you would do these problems. Okay, good luck. Let me know if you have any questions, and make sure that you work very carefully today on your clever assignment. Thank you.